All right, welcome to Demon Live. We've got an incredibly talented group of folks with us here today. A couple Blue Devils working at Epic Games, which publishes a small game that you may know called Fortnite. Just kidding. Yeah, it's one of the world's most popular games, as well as maker of the Unreal Engine. I'm Abhi Shah, Duke class of 2016. I'm tonight's moderator. I'm based in Seattle, where I work for Xbox Game Pass and content planning portfolio. Before we begin, I want to thank our co-sponsors for tonight's event, Demon, Duke Gaming, and the Innovation Collab. Please note that we are recording this Zoom session for you to stream anytime on Demon Live. And I'm super excited because tonight we're going to hear from our talented all-star panel. We'll be asking some questions. I'll be moderating some questions here, and then we'll have some time for Q&A from our live audience at the end. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists tonight. Joining us, we have Jay Choi, Duke class of 2010, who is senior counsel at Epic Games. We have Dufilho, executive producer of Epic Games, who's formerly worked at Pixar and Google, honorary Blue Devil tonight. We have Kavcsak, who is Duke class of 2009, who's the head of MegaGrants at Epic Games. And we'll get into that in just a second. And again, I'm Abhi Shah, your moderator for tonight, Duke class of 2016 from Game Pass Content Portfolio Planning. So let's jump right in. Chris, I introduced you, your head of Epic's MegaGrants program. I'd love you to just describe your current role briefly and give folks an overview of your program and what it does.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Abhi, and good to be back in the Duke community. It feels like a long time ago in 2009 when I graduated, but it's exciting to come full circle today. So a little bit about the MegaGrants program. So it's a $100 million fund that Tim, our CEO, started 3 years ago, and really the goal was to fund creators and developers doing amazing things with Unreal Engine and related 3D technology. So a fund set aside to really catalyze innovation in the space. And that covers a wide range of types of applicants and recipients. So we funded everything from small indie game developers to people building tools and open source products, in automotive and media and entertainment. So really covers a wide range of product types. And really, the overall goal is, again, to catalyze innovation. So really cool program to run. In that role, leading a team that manages both the kind of the strategy and operations for that program. So getting hundreds of applications in a month and really, identifying what we think are the most promising, innovative projects. So it's been a really fun experience for me, and been able to support some awesome creators around the globe. So we've covered every corner of the globe with the program. And like I said, we got a success story from a recipient the other day who built a plugin for Formula One, and their plugin has been seen by hundreds of millions of people in 20 Formula One races last year. So definitely a really inspiring program to be a part of. And I think we're very much in the early innings of real-time 3D as an Unreal Engine is an important piece of that. So it's been an exciting ride for me so far.
Sweet. And yeah, it seems like the program spans industries, game developers, but also creators beyond gaming. But just in general, like going to gaming kind of more specifically, there's a broad audience here today of Duke students. What pathways do you recommend for starting a career in gaming? A lot of people may not necessarily think of gaming as a job, right, immediately. But it is totally a place where you could have a career. How would you recommend kind of breaking in?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The cool thing about gaming is, I was a big gamer when I was younger in my high school and college years. I remember playing Halo on Central Campus with my friends at Duke. So it really brings me back. But, I think that gaming, we're starting to see the lines blur in terms of interactive media and entertainment. So I think the experience that you can see when you go to the movie theater is starting to blur that with the video game, and it's all just going to become one big cool ecosystem. And I think as a result, what I've seen with gaming is that it's a really unique industry. You have you have the creative side, the folks that are developing the games and building the artwork and actually, creating that part. Then you have the folks that are working on how do we get this to an audience and scale, and what do the monetization models look like. And then, my entry point was more on the strategy side of things. So I was in management consulting before coming over to Epic. So I joined more on the strategy and finance side of the organization, and that has evolved into this MegaGrants role. And Epic is a unique place where there's just so much room for growth that I think there's a lot of cool opportunities that pop up along the way. So I think my advice would just be there's many entry points, and whatever you're passionate about and wherever your skills align, I think just going out there and finding cool opportunities, whether it's at a large AAA game studio, whether it's at a small scrappy startup, I think there's no shortage of opportunities, and just be proactive. I think there's lots of stuff out there that you can get involved in.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of there being many entry points. I love that you talked about your background in management consulting, how that was, a direction. I do want to switch over to Karen, who maybe took more of a traditional creative path and wound up at Epic. Karen would love to hear about your story, your journey, and how your career experiences, Pixar, Google, and how you ended up at Epic. Would love to hear about your path.
The twisty, winding road, and I always start with animation. That's where and I always like to say that's where the wind blew me after school, and I found myself working with people who did traditional animation, and then digital started, and that led to the job at Pixar, where the emphasis was really about storytelling and world building and characters with emotion, and being a part of those teams was very exciting, and taking that into sort of the Google experience, where I was able to help build creative team there and bring in other storytellers and experiments and VR and different types of screens, the big movie screen and the little tiny mobile screen and screens in between. And that's where my first experience with real time happened. And that was several years of really seeing that as just revelation in media and entertainment. And that then led to Epic, and specifically this shorts initiative that Epic was interested in doing, that does sort of draft off of the MegaGrants ethos and mechanisms as well, and foundations. So we're able to, with this initiative, be a bit more targeted in media and entertainment and in animation, and bring the engine into that industry from a practical standpoint. Studios, pipeline, this is what this looks like. It's quite different than regular movie making and animation making pipelines, and or put it in the hands of specific creators and just say, what would you do with this technology? And then we have a feedback loop. So it's out in the wild. Our technology and our way of thinking is out in the wild. We observe, we watch, we help, we support, we love, we nurture, and that feedback comes back into our teams, as well. And so all of that is, part of my day to day, as well as just sort of keeping an eye on other content and IP opportunities related to, the Unreal Engine, and all the way into the game and into Fortnite.
Yeah,
it was a lot of years shrunk into a few minutes, so I hope that was okay.
100%. Like, it sounds like started out in traditional animation, and start to see how different processes, pipelines were potentially getting revolutionized or adjusted with kind of Unreal Engine, right? And I actually wanted to ask you about that, just more broadly. How do we're hearing about Unreal Engine being used in commercials, films, everything from The Mandalorian to Ford versus Ferrari. Can you talk more about how it's transforming industries, that your creative industries in general, and also would love for you to touch more on your sponsored shorts program as well.
Yeah, you bet. There's like the very short answer, and then there's the very long, vast answer. So the short answer is, it's been a long time coming. It's wrapping your head around, as a creator, someone who tells stories, putting them in a game engine real-time environment is a different thing. You're in the world that you created, perhaps even literally inside the creators that you creations, characters that you created. And and since it's a real time, you can literally, I'm sure your audience knows this, but move lighting around and change. You can work very fluidly, very, very iteratively, and very collaboratively. And in the traditional pipeline, almost every phase of production is quite siloed. And depending on where you are, that can be a lot of people, that can be, a smaller number of people, but something has to sit in one area of production before it moves to the next one and the next one. And over time, if you're making a feature film, a lot can change, and it doesn't allow for that iteration, where if you're in a real-time environment, all bets are off. You can move quite differently, and very practically, you take a lot of work that you may have not seen until you're way down at the end of the pipeline, post-production. You're moving that into pre-production. So we're kind of playing around with that, thinking of post is the new pre, and and then just simply using the tool as a story exploration tool. You're again in that world of your story. What is your character doing? Well, they're doing this or doing that, and never mind the wider Epic ecosystem, which is vast and very indie friendly, and you can and assets and things work across ecosystems. So that's it's just really, really, really cool. And I think we're still at the beginning of just this thing that's just taking off, and I think is really going to change certainly content of the future, the way you do it and the way it's presented out into the world as well. So that's why I'm so excited transitioning over into the shorts program. We're so lucky, and the culture, but also I think Epic is just such a generous company, generous because of the grants, but also generous of thought and in their openness and in their, real hunger to, have folks and have artists and have gamers and have everyone explore the engine, and push up against it and find the spaces where there might be blind spots, and you make the product better. So it's just very fascinating ethos, which I don't know that you have in other sort of creative endeavors. A lot of things have quite, walled gardens around them, and this culture, I think, and maybe again that's from gaming, is quite different. It's quite generous in all of those ways. And so the shorts initiative endeavors to to match that and to support these projects in a variety of ways. And at the end of a project, if all goes well, we can celebrate it together and do even co-marketing or show them at film festivals, or kind of help even participate in that part of the production as well. So hope that answers.
Yeah, I think that was great. I loved how you mentioned that, call it technology is transforming some of these pipelines. And I love how it's like, oh, we'll figure it out in post. That's becoming more of a trend, and how you're also empowering. Yep. Sometimes a lot of the creative risk taking happens with a solo person that jumps in and tries to do something crazy. We see that in gaming all the time.
Totally.
And I think I love how you're empowering the creators.
I think it's a quote I've stolen, but it's something that I try and, professionally follow. And it's, if I have questions, I go to artists. So, because that's, I think, the type of, brain that it takes to open up something new and ask new questions. And when you merge that with, some new technology, and I've just done that all in my entire career, from Pixar to Google to here and places in between, when you get that right, really exciting things can happen.
Yeah, we'll come back to this. I think we're scratching the surface as well on that topic, and about creative risk taking. And but Jay, I do want to get you in the mix here. So I'm going to ask a broad question. Chris, Karen, great for you to jump in, but Jay, I would love you to lead. We've got a lot of students here watching. What's one example of how your degree helped you in your profession? And kind of a broader question, what type of degrees are companies like Epic seeking in this industry beyond call it engineering, computer science? What one might stereotypically assume companies like this are looking for?
Sure. Thanks so much, Abhi. And I want to echo Chris's sentiment that it's just so good to connect with the Duke community. It certainly is a huge part of my history and who I am now. So it's really great to be with you guys today. As for how my degree has helped in my profession, from a very practical perspective, studying engineering is monumental differentiator, I think, at least in the legal industry. You don't see a lot of engineering to law sort of career paths, or certainly not to the extent that you would see in some of the other liberal arts fields. And working at a tech company and advising on technical issues, dealing with software licensing agreements and talking to engineers every day, all of these are greatly impacted by my experience as an engineer, at least having some basic understanding of programming concepts and languages, and just being able to speak that language, even if it's at a shallow level. Being able to do that is really really how my degree differentiates me, I think, from other lawyers without those degrees. Not to say that there aren't others at Epic with the same qualifications, but that's been huge. And a little bit more abstractly, I think the engineering training kind of teaches you how to solve problems, right? You break problems down into its constituent parts and solve them one by one, and that you can apply that across virtually every field, and law is no different. So I think those are two kind of concrete examples of how my degree has helped.
That's great. That's great. Chris, would you like to jump in or add anything briefly onto that?
Sure. Yeah, I had a weird combination of, I was an economics major and chemistry minor, which meant I was pre-med, but really on the fence about it. And, that is less of a, I guess, practical set of skills, but more, I think, echoing Jay's point on the problem solving piece. My time in strategy consulting, and then also spending some time on Epic's strategy team, I've covered a wide range of problems. Jay and I collaborated on some legal related project. I've done, market entry for international, and really that's about, ingesting a lot of different data, whether it's structured or unstructured, whether it's, quantitative or qualitative, drawing out insights, and then coming up with conclusions and plans. And I think that really is, I think about my days in organic chemistry. It's like, how do I take a set of principles and rules and actually get from point A to point B, which at the time was really painful, but now I realize that sort of challenging problem solving is what makes me tick and what gets me excited. So it's definitely helped me in my days. And I see Jay is laughing about the organic chemistry aspect.
Oh boy, the days of Orgo.
There's a lot of Duke students sighing on mute right now. I love again the narratives emerging. Jay, I love how engineering is helping kind of define unique skill set in called the legal space. Chris, I like how it's it's a skill set, and that you're developing less about called the specific degree. Something that it's the skill set and thinking and process that you learned in organic chemistry could apply later on. Karen, would love to hear from you as well. How your degree, like what degree did you get, and how did that help you, or not? I don't know. Great to hear from you as well.
Sure. I did not take organic chemistry or engineering, and but I do work with. Well, I don't work with chemists at all, but of course I do work with engineers and have, and I really appreciate that complex problem solving and the sort of literal nature of that, because that's producing and that's building something, taking a complex thing and putting it in its pieces and explaining it back to somebody sort of step by step. I would add though, you're working, in the arts, you're working with people, and you have to have a lot of trust and a lot of trusting of the process to ultimately get, somewhere that's really maybe only one person's vision. And to that end, really being able to articulate your idea, be cool about it, build trust amongst the team. I think those are things that you learn through experience, regardless of what you're studying at school. And I always like to advise folks to, just work on writing really clear sentences. It's kind of very basic, but and just that collaboration, because it's never ever, watch credits in a movie, watch credits in anything, and it's just the hundreds of people, and it really does take all of those people and then some, right? So anything that helps you, put a show on, regardless of what the show actually is, and that you're following those steps to actually execute that. That's I think the combination here that makes something like the products and things and programs that Epic, puts on in anything in the media and entertainment or games companies, products, it takes that collaboration. So you have to learn to communicate, right? And you have to learn to, have some flexibility in all of that, right? And, to all kind of hope, from a producer standpoint too, but even from a creative standpoint, make sure everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction, right? And it may take some hurting in that way. So that's what I like to say to my engineering and or chemistry friends.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I know, again, some of the Duke students on Mute probably have like 10-page papers, and they're thinking about how they feel, get to that 10 page, those 10 pages. But conciseness, clear communication, super valuable skill set.
Well, and it's very basic, but just the iterative process. Things you just don't hit it out of the park, right? It takes writing is rewriting conceit, right? But that applies to everything, right? And also not being afraid to share your work. I think early on, no matter what field you're in, there could be hesitancy to that, but it only gets stronger when you can defend it, right? So I think that works across technology and the creative fields.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad you brought up writing, and I'm sure that most of you who are students lament all the writing that you have to do for school, but there's a reason that's part of your training. And across at least the fields that I've worked in, whether it's engineering or law, writing is the consistent thread of like possibly the most important skill. It's like communication generally, and one of the primary forms of communication you'll engage in is writing. So being able to write concisely and clearly is, practically speaking, one of the most important things you can learn how to do.
Yeah.
And particularly, I again know a lot of creative folks, creative students on this call, right? Chris and Karen, we've got you from MegaGrants and the sponsored shorts. You're considering applications, right, from creatives and pitches, if you will. I would imagine how they communicate their pitch and their project to you is super important and a large factor in whether you move forward or not. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's where that clarity comes in, vision, willingness to put yourself out there. But yeah, communicating that clearly and and getting folks excited about it. A lot of these grants are, they're meant to be entertaining. Games are meant to be fun, but even taking the skills and putting it into architecture, for example, or the automotive industry, it totally applies there as well. There's design there, there's communication there, there's ideas there, there's collaboration there, there's beauty there, there's emotion there, right? So being able to communicate all of that is critical. And you're right, we get a lot of, pitches, and the stronger ones are, you can tell, have been iterated on and have been refined and have been edited and have been reworded to just make sure that it's making its point.
I love it. I love the themes. No matter your degree, call it some of the core principles here: clear communication, being a strong, concise. I'm ironically, failing here, but clear communication. Structured thinking to problem solving from Chris. How do you break down a problem in a structured fashion? And then from Jay, how do you kind of, if you are an engineer, maybe how do you take a skill set and make that kind of a unique aspect about you in another kind of larger field? So I like the variety of answers we got here. I'm going to go ahead and steer us back towards Epic and their mission of kind of empowering creators, and particularly with the MegaGrants and sponsored shorts here. So Epic, it has recently acquired some artist-focused platforms: Bandcamp, ArtStation. It seems like you might be rubbing shoulders in Cary, North Carolina, with a lot of different, or wherever you might be remotely, with a lot of different creatives in the company, right? So it'd just be great to understand, hey, what type of creative roles exist within a company like Epic? What are the types of folks that are operating there? Karen, we know that you're in the animation industry, but great to kind of get a broader kind of background of who's there.
I'll give it a go. It's a big-ish company, and it's a visual company, and engineering and code as well. So there's all types of opportunity, and the game. of course, right? That takes art and creative vision and execution to produce things for, for exactly that. So, those are all their entry points there. There's marketing, which is a big deal because you're focusing a team and language on a frame of something, something that you want an industry to accept, and you want to sort of change hearts and minds, and that's super exciting. So there are creative roles there as well. And I think also just, I'm just sort of speaking to a student point of view right now. I think your first job, or your second or your third, sets some sort of course, but there's so much still more that things can lead to, and you might pivot to. You might think you're going to be an engineer, and then you're going to be an awesome lawyer, right? And or you think you might want to work in marketing, but really you end up writing children's books because that's just where your path took you. And I would just say there's so much urgency to figure things out, right? Versus to sort of like, who am I with? Who am I working with every day? How do I participate? How is this collaboration? Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I, and that should be a struggle, right? You don't know everything. So I hope I'm not on a tangent right now, but I think it's important just to emphasize that it just does, they're just because, one decision opens up a pathway of perhaps many other, inevitabilities, right? So one creative role may lead to, something you just hadn't expected because you opened yourself up to, put yourself in that kind of maybe vulnerable, position. But anyway, but to go back to your original question, I think there are a lot of those roles, and now at Epic, is growing this ecosystem through either acquisitions or partnering with places. Of course, that's all these other creative and other roles are opening, and then what will we do together? And then that's sort of like new territory, right? And sort of fresh snow in a way.
I love it. I love the threads that you mentioned, like just larger note that, hey, there's creativity that can exist in all roles, but also appreciated kind of an overview of the more literal creative roles at Epic.
Abhi,
Go for it.
I'll jump in just because I what Karen said resonates with me so much in terms of just that process of career exploration. I mean, I graduated in 2009 during the last financial crisis. I thought I was going to go into a finance role. That didn't happen. So I went and I was a teacher in the Dominican Republic for a year, and that was one of the coolest years of my life. And, from there, I went to work for a payments software startup in Colorado. And then, and now I'm here at Epic. So there's no linear path. And I think a lot of the fun for me has been that process of exploration. So totally agree with Karen in terms of working on cool, interesting projects that you're excited about with great people. You follow that thread, and I think you'll land somewhere great. Definitely don't feel like you have to figure it out from the first year out of school.
Chris, love that you talked about your career journey. And now that we're on that topic, like actually would like to tag Jay, how did you get to become, what was your journey? Was it also a zigzag? How did you go from engineering to law? How did you end up as senior counsel at Epic? Would love to hear your story as well.
Sure. Well, the funny way that I explain it usually is when I got to engineering school at Duke freshman year, I was taking EGR 53. It didn't take much time for me to realize that everybody else was smarter than me, right? Everybody else seemed to know what they were doing, and this was all fresh stuff. I came to enjoy it. I came to learn a lot. But the funny way I tell it again is like I decided to go to law school because I wasn't good enough to be an engineer. There's definitely a grain of truth to that. But the real story is that it's a little bit boring, honestly. I had a mentor figure in high school who was really influential on my career path, and he was a patent litigator. So he had studied engineering, gotten actually a PhD in engineering, and gone into law. So going into my undergrad, that was kind of one of the many paths that I was considering. And then, considering how much smarter everybody else was, I did what everybody, what all other law students do. It's just people that don't know what else to do apply to law school. And I kind of ended up there, but it was, I had that in the back of my mind, and it just happened to work out. And it's a great intersection to live in, again, because of that differentiator within the legal field. If I practiced patent litigation for 4 years, and in many ways, having a hard science degree is required. If you want to practice patent prosecution, which is the process of applying for patents, you need to take the patent bar, and to take the patent bar, you have to have a hard science degree. So it's been hugely helpful to have that, and that's just kind of how I ended up there. It was, half planned and half coincidental. But following on the sort of same thread that Chris and Karen are touching on in terms of just where the winds may carry you in terms of your career, Epic was certainly that for me. I grew up super into video games. Halo was a huge part of my college experience as well. But it was always kind of like something that I suppressed, especially when it came in terms of like a professional identity or a career path. It was something I was never comfortable expressing. Oh, I want to get into gaming. For some reason, I found that I don't know, embarrassing or something. And in hindsight, that was just so silly, right? Because gaming is a bigger industry than I think television and movies and other media industries combined. It's ginormous. And not only that, you asked the question earlier, Abhi, about like what sorts of degrees are useful for gaming, but there's really not a limitation on the types of degrees that can be helpful, right? It's just anything that can help a company, right? There's so many operational things that have nothing to do with the actual gaming side that we have a need for. So there's not that limitation. But yeah, I do. I ended up at Epic just kind of on a whim. Applying to this position in secret because it had always been kind of a dream of mine to work for a gaming company, and it's probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate like hearing your journey, and also cool to see kind of a passion, resurface and intersect with your career. All right, I have one last question, for folks. Just hey, know that you all are seeing a lot of different projects. Across your work, any projects that you're working on, and Chris and gaming, or just in general, like Karen, Jay, like any things that you're working on that you might want, like that you could give us, that you could cheer on, that you're like super excited, anything that you could potentially share or give us, a heads up on to look out for.
What can we talk about?
Maybe a project. All good. If not, I can move on. But yeah,
I think as it pertains to the MegaGrants program, I'm just excited to a lot of the great stories of our recipients. I think there's some really interesting, compelling stories that are surfacing, and getting more of those out into the world and telling those stories. So I'm excited about that, and just continuing to build a community amongst the MegaGrants recipients, and on a more personal level, that the real-time 3D and Unreal Engine ecosystem is crazily complex. It is every single vertical that we're in has its own tech stack and workflows and lingo and file formats, and I'm just immersing myself in that ecosystem. So for me, just wrapping my head around that in a way where I feel really conversant is something I'm personally excited about.
It's a great answer. And I would just, there are a lot of fun projects coming out over this year as a result of a lot of the MegaGrants work and support. Some of those make their way onto, our sort of spotlight section at the Unreal Engine or Epic Games website. So if you haven't looked there, that's a great resource for great creator stories. We feature folks on all the social channels, from Instagram stories to work that we post on YouTube that's wonderfully, put together, thoughtfully put together. And some of it is a deep dive and some of it is more of a hint, but there's a very consistent drumbeat of assets and technology that's there you are, free, go for it, knock yourself out, for creators, to play with. And so I would say that's a really nice hub of information for folks who are, interested in learning more specifically about Unreal Engine, real practical ways. A lot of tutorials, our fellowship and education opportunities are huge and generous as well, generous of thought and generous of, just in that they exist, right? So it's just another thing that we're always excited to point folks to, and it has the most current, information.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that the Unreal Engine has the greatest potential out of any product that exists out there to become the ubiquitous platform for 3D real-time content. And one of the ways that kind of unexpected ways that I see that sort of actualizing is the HMI field, which is human machine interface, but we kind of use that to describe essentially infotainment centers in vehicles, right? The screens that you see in vehicles. I think the ways that that's going to evolve in terms of what sort of things you see on the screens and how those screens are presented to you, whether it's in a windshield display or on the dashboard. We have a number of licensees that are automobile manufacturers that are using Unreal Engine in their vehicles now that are going to come into production in the next few years. And that's really exciting for me.
Sounds like no matter what industry you're in, if Duke folks that are on the call, download Unreal Engine. Maybe one of the projects we'll see in the future will be from someone on the call right now. So yeah, thanks folks. Yeah, thanks Chris, Jay, Karen. Now to the fun part here. We've got a few rapid fire questions here. So I'm gonna keep it to like one sentence, short response, rapid fire questions here. Then we'll get to Q&A. I see some great questions in chat. Please put questions in chat for our Q&A after this rapid fire section. And then we'll have also raffle winners announced at the end by Michael Topper, president of Duke Gaming. So, all right, first question for rapid fire. What's one piece of advice for students that are hoping to build a career in gaming? What's one piece of advice you have? Chris, let's start with you.
One sentence. I would just say be proactive and be proactive and get out there. There's tons of opportunities. Go find them. Email people, send LinkedIn messages, just be persistent.
Like the hustle. Karen, how about you?
Go for it. Build it. Just do it. Take it from beginning to middle to end. Who cares if you hate it at the end? Doesn't matter. You made something, and that's a huge achievement. So, and it will serve as a forcing function for, decision making. Yes, I like this. No, I didn't. Oh, I have a calling card. Now Chris is going to hire me. Whatever it is. So that's my advice.
Great. Jay.
I hated this advice when I was a student because I was so bad at it, but I can't stress how true it is. Don't underestimate the power of networking.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd also echo that. I feel like I should, be part of the rapid fire, put myself on the spot. I'd agree. And +1, reach out, network. You can learn so much in a 30-minute conversation, and a lot of people will be willing to take that call and pay it forward. All right, next question. Share the most challenging and the most rewarding aspect of your job. So 2 sentences, go for it. Karen, you cool if I start with you?
Yes. Okay, so wait, so most challenging?
Most challenging and most rewarding. So 2-sided coin.
Okay, let's see, most challenging. Oh, there's just not enough time. Right. Yeah, maybe that's it. And then the most rewarding is enabling artists.
Cool. Jay, how about you?
I think mine are the same for most challenging and most rewarding. But given how on the bleeding edge of technology and innovation and creativity that Epic is, doing things that have never been done before.
Cool. Chris, any additional?
On the challenging, definitely just the complexity of the technology and the ecosystem and connecting all the dots, just learning that and getting deeper in that. Most rewarding aspect of the job, just leading such a passionate team of people. Shout out to the MegaGrants team and all the great work that they're doing to run such a great program, and the outcomes that we see with our recipients and some of the projects innovation that we're enabling.
Great. Yeah. Most challenging, kind of not enough time in the day, and most rewarding. Great to see, great creative coming out of, the Unreal Engine. Next question. What is the one way that COVID has shaped or is shaping your industry and your roles in the industry? And it's also something folks have asked as well in chat. So how's COVID shaped your industry or your role? Jay, do you mind if we start with you, Jay?
Sure, I'll start with the obvious one, and it's just remote work, right? Before COVID, we only had lawyers in the North Carolina and in a Seattle office. But since then, I can't name the number of cities where not only attorneys but Epic employees sit, and I think it's a huge boost, right, to our resources and workforce, because we no longer have those geographical limitations.
Cool. Karen?
Yeah, I think it's accelerated what was already happening, which is that power of the indie artist and the tools that are available. And it's not just that part making it, but it's where it goes. So I think there's a lot. I think it's fueled that.
Cool. Chris?
Yeah, echo what Jay and Karen said. I'll also add just accelerating new modes of collaboration and technology, Miro board, Zoom. It's amazing how quickly we've adapted to being able to work remotely effectively. If you'd asked me 5 years ago if I could do that, I probably would have said, no, you're crazy. But now it just feels easy. It's cool. And we're such a global distributed organization that you could be problem solving with someone in Singapore and someone in London at the same time, which is pretty awesome.
Love it. Next question. Yeah, this is a great one for a one sentence answer. How will the metaverse shape the future of game design and vice versa? So yeah, Chris, I'm gonna start with you on that one.
The buzzword of 2021 is still the buzzword of 2022. I think just continuing to blur the lines in terms of interactive entertainment. I think it all just converges in one place.
Cool, great answer. Karen?
I think the sentence has the answer in it. So if you invert it, don't know that the metaverse is influencing gaming, but that gaming is going to influence whatever it is the metaverse is. And I also don't think that that's a singular thing. I think it's a way that, we're going to experience, virtual, world. And, hopefully it will be beautiful. And also just a way of encountering that versus, and that we can go create it. It's not creating us. It's not telling us what to do. Yeah.
Great. Jay?
I think breaking down walled gardens and the acceleration of interoperability between platforms. I think it's not going to be acceptable for whatever becomes the metaverse to be a closed system. So whatever that is has to be able to import and export content between gaming platforms, between social media platforms, media and entertainment platforms, etc.
Great. I'm going to throw in my own one last rapid fire question, a fun one here. What are you playing? What are you watching that's inspiring you lately? Something Unreal Engine or not, totally up to you. If something made in Unreal or not. All good. Karen, I'll start with you.
I'm trying to, let's see. Well, I'm taking some other language courses, but I'm doing that live. I'm not doing that. But that's not, I don't know if that's answering your question. I just don't have a show I can admit to watching.
All good. Jay?
Horizon Forbidden West and Gran Turismo 7. I just bought a sim racing setup that I'm super excited about.
Such a better answer.
Chris?
I've been dabbling in the throwbacks, was playing some like old school Unreal Tournament the other day and just getting my butt kicked so bad.
I like it. Chris staying on brand. No, I'm kidding. I like it. Cool. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and move over to audience Q&A here for the last 10 or so minutes. Alrighty, getting started with the first one. Okay, so how are independent game developers incorporated into the creative process within Epic? So how do you interact with independent game developers at Epic? What does that look like?
Yeah, from the engine licensing side, we assuming we're talking about third parties outside of Epic in terms of indie game developers, we don't really get involved in the creative process. But what we do is we support from a technical perspective if they're using Unreal Engine. So there's lots of interaction and lots of support in terms of getting them on board in terms of how to use Unreal Engine and any bugs or optimizations they need. So there's lots of sort of interactivity in that sense, but there's not a lot of meddling in the creative process.
Cool. Chris, Karen, anything you want to add on to that?
It's similar for the media and entertainment space as well. I mean, we do have some collaboration, so it gets a little, Venn diagrammy there, but for the most part, follows the same model.
Cool. Any advice for people interested in writing careers in the gaming space? Any advice?
Was that writing careers?
Writing?
Yeah. Anyone that's interested in writing specifically?
Well, that's fun. I don't know as much about writing for games, but I do think that taking writing and putting it in a real-time context is super interesting, because I think that because of that quick iterative process, it affects the writing. And shout out to a program we did last year with Tribeca Film Festival that was exactly about this, and we called it Writing in Unreal, and it's just an idea I had, and we ended up developing it into a program and a way of approaching the engine for writers. And you can Google that and see that there's some panels that might be fun, to watch, with some real practical advice and people who are really doing that, not just thinking about doing it, but literally putting that into their tool chest. So I'd point you that way.
Cool. This is a bit more of a tactical question, but I, as part of the MegaGrants and sponsored shorts, I imagine you're looking at a lot of creators. Can you speak to the importance of personal projects versus, call it, classwork, when kind of assessing credibility or breaking in? Call it someone that's straight out of college. How do you evaluate portfolio versus?
I'll take that first, Chris, and then over to you. A good idea is a good idea. And that doesn't mean that, oh, I like your story, but it could mean that. It just means, oh, you're really thinking about using this technology in an interesting way. We want you to embrace it. And then we feel so confident in the technology, we know that it's going to be in a creator toolkit as you move on in your career. So I don't know that I would add anything more just to that. I would, I don't know that we would say, oh, student, but I would say that, experience does matter as well. So, just being honest with yourself and what you're trying to do, I think is important, and it will come through.
Cool. Anything else, folks? Chris? Jay?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit of the core of the question there is obviously, I remember my time at Duke, and your time is precious, and the course load's demanding, and there's a lot that's asked of you, and there's only so many hours in the day. And if part of that question is around, well, if I have hours to trade off, and do I spend them studying or do I spend them working on my personal project? I mean, my answer is that everyone learns differently. And I know personally that sitting in a classroom and listening to a lecture is not how I learn. I learn by actually better off sitting in a library and doing problem sets by myself, or getting my hands on something and building something. So, by no means don't just not go to your classes and flunk out, but certainly, like, if you're talking about is the difference between a 3.5 GPA and a 3.3 GPA and having a lot of awesome side passion projects, like, go do the thing you're excited about. Like, at the end of the day, I think a number on a resume in terms of GPA is not the end all be all. And I think particularly in something like gaming, it's an industry where people really do appreciate the passion. And if you're like, hey, look at this awesome portfolio and side project that I have, I think that goes a long way. So that's my plug to not worry too much about grades.
Like going to like Epic and the company, what would you say is unique about the culture of Epic? There's folks that might be interested in the company and interested, potentially applying one day. Can you just tell us about one or two things that you think makes Epic uniquely Epic?
I'll repeat a point I made earlier, just because I think it's that, I feel it that strongly. It's such a generous culture, very highly collaborative. So everyone is, excited about a project, putting their best foot forward, so I would say, and then I think that's reflective in the collaboration we have outside of Epic as well. So super generous of time and thought and skill and expertise is, it's remarkable. I've never seen anything quite like it.
I think one thing, or probably the most unique thing about Epic and its philosophy, is that we play the long game. We're in it for the long run. So whether it's about the way that Epic treats its employees, or even the way that Epic treats its partners or its consumers, the player base, we aren't in there for short-term gain and to squeeze what we can out of you while we can. It really is about building the relationship and building the trust and respecting that person or partner, in hopes that it pays off in the long run, right? Having that one employee remain with you for 5, 6, 7 years is much more valuable than having that turnover and squeezing out what you can and crunching your employees essentially. So it's really a place that treats its employees well, and that carries over to how it interacts with its external partners too.
Yeah, echo Jay's sentiment there, and I think Tim is definitely a really visionary. He's a visionary, and he really is wanting to help create this open and fair ecosystem, which I think is really cool and unique, and is refreshing in the business context. And I think you feel that internally as well as like Jay said in our interactions with partners. And the one thing I'll add is just it's such an eclectic place. I mean, within the gaming industry, you bring so many different backgrounds. You have, people with deep expertise in software engineering who can, program the physics engine within Unreal Engine. And then you have folks that are artists who are actually, building our characters and our storylines, and you bring all those people into one company, and it's really cool. It's just an eclectic place. I feel like you can learn a ton from everyone around you, and definitely no boring days. And I always feel like I'm just showing up and learning something new every day.
Speaking of that, like long-term vision and kind of where the industry is heading, a lot of different concepts are mentioned: interoperability, kind of enabling the creator. Obviously, how gaming is going to shape the metaverse, right? What do you think are the challenges that are looming that will need to be solved, right? What are the big challenges in your path, in the long game, so to speak?
I think there's a list of technical challenges for sure, which I won't, probably shouldn't get into. I think there's language, there's, I think, you have to think with international mindset. You can't think of it, from just a Northern American mindset of, the long game that is. So I think those all add up. And I think if there's any new kind of communication mechanic that needs to be enabled to unlock, whatever this new future is going to be, right? Have we found that? Is that yet to be discovered? I don't know.
Yeah, I think another thing I'll add to that is just how the whole ecosystem operates commercially, right? We're talking about in a version of the open metaverse where there's multiple metaverses, and if you're moving between Roblox and Fortnite and these different things, like how do you what's the monetization model? How is everyone participating in that in a way that's fair and equitable, and kind of all ships rise? And I think that is no short undertaking in terms of coordinating with so many different players. So it's a long game. A lot of like Jay said, a lot of the stuff we're thinking about at Epic is we're not talking 1-2 year horizon, we're talking 5-10 year horizon. So it'll be a long journey, but it'll certainly be a fun and dynamic one.
It's like my takeaway, and for folks on the call, it sounds like we're going to need a lot of smart people from a lot of diverse backgrounds and expertise to come together, whether you're engineering, technical side, marketing side, the business side, a lot of opportunity to have a hand in the long game here. So yeah, appreciate that. And yeah, there's some good comments in chat here. A lot of, hey, how do we do something, hackathon with Unreal Engine, some good kind of comments out here in chat. There is one question. Epic and Microsoft Xbox are, we go way back, Gears of War, right? There is one question for me on the Xbox side. To just quickly answer it, the question is, how did you get involved in the marketing business strategy side of gaming at Xbox? How does gaming marketing differ from other entertainment forms? Good Jay, Karen, Chris, great for you to weigh in as well. I'll just kind of quickly answer. For me, my story, my journey, I applied to I studied math and arts of the moving image film at Duke. I applied to Microsoft on a whim my junior year. I actually talked to Amy Unell. I took her class. I was on a path to probably go to New York City and try and become a producer on a show or something like that, right? Try and grind my way in show business. But applied to Microsoft on a whim. And I didn't even put 2 and 2 together that Xbox was under Microsoft, right? And so I get to the interview and I meet a person from Xbox and I'm like, oh, wow, gaming is like a real thing that I could potentially work on. And one thing led to another. I got the internship my junior year in marketing at Xbox. So another good case of math major working on marketing, totally learned, on the job, but the core skill sets that we discussed earlier, clear communication, being able to think through problems in a really structured way. That's what really paved the way for me to get that opportunity and return full-time. I've been at Xbox for 6 years, working in various roles as business planner on our games business and marketing. And now I'm on the strategy side on Game Pass, working on content planning, acquisition. Just really quickly on gaming marketing and how it differs from other entertainment. I'll just say the audience, I'm sure there's a ton of gamers in the audience today and on this call. Gamers, they know what they want. You have to be very, very conscious of their needs and kind of the insights around them. And they're very vocal, right? Gamers will let you know if something isn't going well, or if they could, feedback is very clear, very prominent. So as a marketer, as someone working in the industry, it's both exciting to know that you have a very active and engaged audience, but also a double-edged sword in that, you could quickly, hear from them if you're doing things that they don't like. So I'll say that you've got a very passionate and vocal base, particularly with the gaming audience. I will say gaming is a broad field, right? You've got mobile gamers, PC gamers, console gamers, all types. So yeah, but pretty vocal. I'll stop there. Thanks so much, Karen, Jay, Chris. It was so great getting to chat with you. I'm going to go ahead and toss over to Duke Gaming President Michael Topper here to do our outro. But just want to say thank you so much for your time. Michael, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you again to all 4 of you guys for a really awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of the people in the chat enjoyed it as well. I'm Michael Topper. I am Duke Class of 2023. I'm the current president of Duke Gaming, which is a student group on campus for gamers. Before we wrap, one big thing is we do want to announce the winners of tonight's raffle, which we are super excited to give away 2 Epic Games hoodies. I believe we have a graphic that's going to go up right now. Yeah, announcing the winners. So as soon as that pops up, I'm excited to announce that the winners are Simon Brown, class of 22, and Amy Lazarus, class of 05. You've each won an Epic Games hoodie. Demon's going to email you to coordinate the prizes, so look out for that. And thank you everyone for playing our raffle and coming through. You can stream tonight's conversation anytime on dukedemon.com if you want to come back to any of that awesome advice. One thing is you can find Duke Demon on socials, and you can find Duke Gaming as well. We're on Instagram at dukegaming.gg, so feel free to find us there. Please don't miss the next Demon Live event. It's going to feature alumni from the New York Times Company. That's going to be really cool. That's coming next week, March 21st. So look out for that. And yeah, thanks again for joining us, everyone. Stay safe. Be well.